Good morning, good morning, and happy Saturday. Happy Saturday, y'all. We made it. It's the weekend. Thank you for joining us. I am Kimberly Holmes Ross with Evanston Cradle to Career, where we work with over 40 agencies here in Evanston to make it the most equitable place it can be. And of course, I'm here with the advocates as I am every Saturday. They've been working hard in the community over the last 2 years tirelessly, and I have no doubt that they will continue. So thank you for joining us. This is our community coffee where we connect you with what's going on in Evanston. And we have the advocates here to bring us and see what's making a difference. So we are happy to be here this morning. Of course, we are here with one of our newest partners, Radio La Difference and the Congress of Haiti. We are so excited to be with them. And speaking of making a difference, I don't know, can you guys see my shirt? My lovely, I Love Evanston shirt. This came from Allie Payne. Allie Payne, who owns Compass Realty. She also does some work with Sister Circle. But this latest campaign is with her realty company. And for every house she sells, the company is donating $500 to a charity here in town. So talking about making a difference. So thank you, Allie. Thank you, Compass Realty. And let's sell some houses, okay? For that resource. So again, today we have some great guests, as always. You guys have been asking for her. She's here. The new executive director of Evanston Cradle to Career, Maricar Ramos.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I love the music beforehand, kind of getting us psyched up for our program. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about who I am for those that haven't met me, and then about what Cradle to Career has been doing to support communities during COVID-19 and specifically around reopening. So I have been involved in anti-racism and equity work my whole entire life. I am really privileged to be a racial equity circle facilitator. I have also facilitated racial equity impact assessments for Chicago United for Equity. When I came here as a 10-year-old, the idea of what it meant to be equitable was really very ingrained in me very early. What it is to support our families and our communities in making sure that we all have what we need, regardless of race, creed, or color. Professionally, I've done a few things. I've been a grant maker, I've been a fundraiser, program innovator. Most recently with the Chicago Public Schools, I was the person who handled the Summer Youth Employment Program. We employed 1,500 youth every single summer, and we tried to do it in the most equitable way possible. I was also the workforce development liaison for the district. So I worked with nonprofits, I worked with foundations, I worked with the government, and specifically around collective impact. I am so thrilled to be here in Evanston. I have some Evanston roots. I went to summer school at Northwestern when I was in college. I've been on the board of the YWCA, a mentor for the Youth Job Center, and on the development committee for McGaw YMCA. What else can I tell you? I am so excited about this work. I feel like we as so as Kim said, there's 40 partner organizations really trying to move forward to disrupt inequity. We'll look at structural disparities in the systems and really try and see what we can do as a collective, as a community, to make sure that Evanston is more equitable for everybody. And that is my goal, and that is my passion, and I am thrilled to be here with you today. In terms of COVID-19, so we've all been in our houses for about 4 months, right? And Evanston Cradle to Career has really been trying to be as supportive as possible, both to our community and our partners during this process. This advocates group was responsible for giving out money for 200 families to a virtual pantry. So let's put our hands together for the advocates. We gave about $10,000 to community members. We gave money to Evanston Own It, which is a collection of Black churches to further support their communities. About $100,000 went out in Chicago COVID-19 response funds for partner organizations and immigrant families. There were some families who were not getting the money from the government based on status, so we really wanted to support them. We have supported homelessness, food insecurity, part of a big diaper drop. I think I just missed that. I think the diaper drop was happening as I was starting. $50,000 for Opportunity Youth, and a variety of other things. So we at Evanston Cradle to Career are part of the mayor's larger nonprofit COVID-19 task force. And from that, there's a nonprofit group that's led by Monique Jones from the Evanston Community Foundation, Dave Davis from Northwestern, and Evanston Cradle to Career. And we have convened about 9 subcommittees around food insecurity, homelessness, early childhood specifically. And what we've been doing around reopening are a few things. We've sat on the reopening task force for D65, been part of bulk purchasing of PPE so that everyone's safe. We've tried to advocate for clear guidelines around how to reopen our centers. And then we're also right now in the process of thinking through with our partners, how can we support this reopening process even further? That's a little bit about me and what we do. Again, so grateful to be here today, so excited. Thank you so much. And thanks, Kim. I love what you do every Saturday.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Markar. It's so great to be here this Saturday afternoon with Community Coffee. Good morning, everyone. Just as a follow-up question, I'd like to know, what are some resources that Cradle to Career has to support our community with the reopening and also with COVID-19, considering we do have over 40 partners?
Yeah. So Cradle to Career, I think, as everyone knows, we serve as this central point, right? We collect information. So some of the things we did this summer was we knew that there were going to be far fewer summer programs. And we knew that some parents wanted to send their kids to programming and some didn't. So we collected information specifically around who's open, what's open, how many, what's the process, for doing that. Something else that we've been trying to talk about is how can we advocate to make sure that our youth are not over-policed this summer, especially our Black and brown youth? Like, what does that look like? So we've had a couple of meetings and we really were received so well by the city and by the police force, but it's the conversation around, since we have so many more kids out and about, how do we make sure that we are not criminalizing our youth and that we are doing everything we can to support that? Does that answer your question, Marquise? Are there other things specifically I should be going into?
I don't think anything specifically, but at least is there one concrete resource that you have that parents can go to get information about, as you just said, about maybe childcare or summer camps or something of that sort?
The most of this information is on our website. It's on our website. And if there's specific information that folks need, they can always reach out to us individually, and we're happy to direct them and provide support in that way.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marika. And yeah, a lot of information. We have a great resource page on our website. So you guys visit our website, www.evanstonc2c.org, and grab that information. Thanks for joining us. I see Rebecca's on, Nico's on, Dr. Logan is on. Thanks, Dr. Logan. If you guys haven't liked his page, Logan's Consultants, he wrote a great article, Zooming While Black. It was great. I really enjoyed it. So you got some time today sitting out in the sun, go and read it. On the donors watching us. So thanks everybody for watching us. Share this page, start a watch party, and we're going to keep going. We're talking about Back to the Future. The world is opening back up, whether we like it or not. And we're just trying to figure out what that's going to look like, how we can support that. We got the announcements about school this week. We know we're going back to e-learning for a while. Some people are going to have to work. So we know kids are going to need childcare. So we're here to kind of help you guys flush that out, talk about what we know, and who better than Miss Betty Combs, who is the executive director at Reba Learning Center, and they are reopened. So we're going to get some real-time information today. So Betty, thank you so much. Betty's an advocate. She's here with us every Saturday, but this Saturday she's a guest. So thank you, Betty.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kim, for inviting me to share our reopening process. It has been certainly a unique experience. I have been in early childhood education since 1971. And we have always, in the early childhood field, recognized that we are essential providers for our community. And it has now come to the forefront. Everybody can see how much childcare is needed during this pandemic and going forward and reopening our economy. So when we closed on March 13th, no one had ever experienced what was about to happen. We had no clue, but one thing that we did do was think about being proactive. I remember I share with everybody, my grandmother told me once, and I think it was related to the Depression, to prepare for war in time of peace. So we were in plan A, but there was always a plan B. Our initial thought was that we would reopen April 13th, and that everything would go back to the way it had been before, that this would be done and over with. But over time, as it evolved, we realized that was not the case. So one thing that we as a team at Reba Early Learning Center, our staff and our board of directors and our childcare community, when we saw that this was not going to be over anytime soon, we worked together as a collaboration with the Evanston Early Childhood Council to put in place to think about what was happening, what were the challenges, what people were going through, and how we could support our children, families, and staff. And so we knew that we had to remain in communication with them. So the first thing we did was we set up Zoom meetings, email contacts to keep in touch with the children, the families, and each other as early childhood leaders. So going forward from there, we formed a task force, the Evanston Early Childhood Council Task Force, which is comprised of about 6 people out of a group of approximately 20 early childhood partners. And we talked about collaborating together so that we had a universal plan for our community for reopening, whenever that would happen, what would be needed, what that process would look like, the anxiety, the stress, and just talking through it for ourselves personally and as a collective. So for Reba, when we reopened, we knew that we needed to help children understand what was happening. And we knew that families needed to understand what was happening, and we needed to, as employees, understand what was happening. So I told our team, we were in this together. I don't have the answers, none of us have the answers, but together we'll figure it out. And that we are here to support each other and to talk through whatever it is, our anxieties, our fears, any challenges that were coming up for families, that we were here to support each other. So that's one thing that I think made the whole process for reopening clear. I asked for input from the families. I asked for input from the employees, my colleagues in the field, for what was going to, and our legislators. So one of the challenges was we had no clear guidelines. Nobody knew what we were going to need to reopen. And it was a daily ongoing conversation. So just waiting for those guidelines to come, and from Illinois Department of Public Health, from the Department of Children and Family Services, from the CDC, and our own local health department. So once we had all those components in place, we were able to come up with a plan to reopen. And we knew that we would need personal protective equipment. We knew that we would have to reorganize our environment for social distancing. And we also knew that we had to have an opportunity to express our fears, our anxieties, and it was divided. Some staff were very eager to get reopened. It was like they didn't know what to do with themselves. And then others were like, no, I don't feel comfortable coming back, as well as some of the families. They were anxious for, when is childcare going to be able to open? Well, I'm not sure that I want to send my child back because I'm worried. I live in an extended family. Their grandparents are compromised. And So all those things came into play when we were talking about reopening and what that was going to look like. So we had a wonderful AmeriCorps volunteer, Danielle Fairchild, and we also had a student from Overton Community College who worked together with me to put together, and others, but to put together a puppet dramatization, which can be viewed on YouTube. If you go to Reba Early Learning Center, you will be able to see the puppet dramatization. And we did that because children, even though they may not be able to express or verbalize what they're feeling, they can sense the tension, they are listening, and they are feeding off of our reactions to things. So we knew that we had to remain positive while also at the same time explaining to them why things were the way they were and give them the opportunity to ask their questions and to have some concrete explanations and examples. So when we talked about coming back to school, I used the term airplane arms as for how far we had to stay away from each other, because that's something that was tangible for them, that they could understand that. And we talked about the need to wear masks or face coverings just to keep our germs to ourselves. That's something that children can identify with, because in early childhood, we're always talking about needing to keep each other safe and covering our coughs and washing our hands. So some things they were familiar with. But then we also talked about how things were going to be different, that parents could not come into the classroom anymore. And that was, I know for ourselves as well, because we're used to communicating with families on a daily basis, face to face, that now that parents could not come into the classroom, what was that going to look like? So we created a welcome back video. One of our parents, Tim Farron, which is also on our website, which is rebaearlylearningcenter.org, that you can view the video for welcome back. But we did a virtual display about what that was going to look like. We showed them the classroom, things in the classroom. And one thing that we did stress was that things are the same, and like your family, your friends, your teachers, but that some things are going to be different. And we talked about what those differences were, and we give them the opportunity to ask questions before coming back. So one of the kids asked, am I going to be able to hug my friends? And we said, well, no, you won't be able to hug your friend, but you can smile at your friend with your eyes because they won't be able to see your mouth. And we also stressed that we have to be flexible. It's hard to wear a face covering 8 hours a day or longer. And so we told the children, if you need to take off your face covering, you can do that. However, you will have to be far enough away from your friends that your germs aren't going to be getting on them, and that you don't have to eat with your face covering on, because that would be challenging to do. And you cannot, you don't have to sleep with your face covering on. And if you're outside, you don't have to wear your face covering. So children need to know what it is that will be happening, just like we as adults do.
Well, Betty, thank you for being the model, as one of the first reopenings for our children. And I love it that you're teaching the kids how to smile. So they're smiling with their eyes. I love it. And I love the airplane arms. I'm going to do that today. Stay airplane arms away from me. But again, somebody in the comments, I think it's rebaearlylearningcenter.org. If you want to see those videos, I think that's super important. And I'm hoping people will follow that as we reopen for the elementary schools, even the high school, to say this is what it'll look like, to give people a peek into the world before you kind of just walk into it. So Betty, thank you so much. I know Trina has a question for you.
Hi, Betty. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for all the information. Being a teacher, I know most of the information from the teacher standpoint. But being a grandmother, it's a little bit harder when you have to send your kids off to school, and just all of that anxiety build up and what's going to happen. Is my child going to bring this home? And you touched on having that communication open with your families and having them involved throughout the whole process. My question is, have you gotten any feedback about how things are going, about how families are feeling? I think this is important because I've talked to a lot of my own families and people in the community, and they're worried about it and don't know if they want to send their kids back. So I just like to know what kind of feedback you've gotten from your family.
So we reopened July 6th. That's a great question, Trina, because not only did our families have concerns and anxiety, so did our staff, myself included. So because we didn't know what that was going to look like. And one thing that we asked our families to do was to think about their own personal circumstance, because it's different for everybody. Some parents are living with extended family who may have high risk, or children with high risk needs. And we anticipated that parents that needed to work outside of the home and needed childcare would come back. But because of the uncertainty about COVID-19 and where everybody was in that process and how safe it actually would be, some elected to wait until August to return. So some of our families will be returning August 3rd. Others elected to wait until the new school year starts, which is at the beginning of September, just so that they can have an idea of what's happening in our community and with the world in terms of COVID-19. And that was fine, because for us, we also needed some flexibility to reacclimate into our program, to get to know the children, because children at this young age, 2 to 5, have separation anxiety as it is. And now with parents not being able to come into the classroom, we knew that that was going to be something else that was going to be of concern for us and their families. But we have worked so hard to ensure that everybody is safe in terms of personal protective equipment, health screening. So we have a routine down. And I think that when we know what we're doing, that eases the discomfort or the anxiety for families, because they can see how we've set up for safety and social distancing. They see children through our Facebook page and wearing face coverings, and we're doing the health screenings. And one thing I want to emphasize is that we're trusting each other. We're trusting our families, our employees, that even outside of the center, that they're going to be safe in terms of social distancing and face coverings, and reduce the risk of their contracting COVID and bringing it back to our center. So I think that when we're all practicing those safety and health precautions and guidelines, that we'll be okay. It's going to look different, but we will be all right. And, you know, I shared everything, the processes for if we did have someone that was exposed to COVID-19 or diagnosed with COVID-19, what were the steps? And they're pretty rigid. I mean, we're not having flexibility. If you've been around 50 or more people, then you will have to self-quarantine until we're sure that you haven't been exposed or been diagnosed with COVID-19. We're having our teachers, hopefully with the help of the Evanston Early Childhood Council and the city of Evanston, to get teachers and any employee in the child care program tested weekly for COVID-19, just so that we can ensure that people don't have it that may be asymptomatic and not exhibiting any symptoms. And we are being very diligent about, the PPE, the health screenings. So I hope over time that people's anxieties will lessen. But I do understand.
Yeah, thank you so much, Betty. And and trust, you like you said, is a huge one. So those that backyard barbecue, that trip quick to Lake Geneva, really can put whole classrooms and people at risk. So we really have to think about it and trust that we're all being safe as we reopen. Well, all the time, but as we reopen and children re-enter these spaces. I know Glenn has a question before we get out of here, man. This half hour applies.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, first, let me say, Betty, thank you for being a real soldier, okay, and taking the first steps to an organic grassroots approach to a problem that clearly defines what essential workers are. Looking in the Black and Brown community, I'm noticing that, we're facing uncertain perils within our community. And we're noticing that organizations are doing more data mining, doing surveys, and supporting and committing without showing any results. And the Black and Brown community is feeling the effects of their so-called commitment to the Black and Brown community. What real work would you like to see that is on the basis of following how you're doing your next steps into actually dealing with it, getting things done, taking action instead of taking names on a survey? What would you like to see done by groups like Cradle to Careers and other advocate groups where the community thinks that they're just putting a feather in their cap to look good amongst their professional peers? What would you like to see groups like us do to assist you in real hands-on effective approach?
Well, what I would like to see and what our Evanston Early Childhood Council has already begun doing is writing to our legislators and communicating with our legislators and asking to have a seat and a voice at the table in the decision-making processes. So financial stability for the early childhood community is crucial. We know that childcare teachers, programs do not receive the support. Many of them are Black and Brown teachers that are the essential workers in childcare programs, earning a little over minimum wage, if not minimum wage, and they are out there doing the work. And we know now how essential childcare is and how programs, particularly nonprofit programs, are needed to have families be able to go back to work and have childcare, especially Black and Brown families. We need to have affordable childcare. So we need our community to write to their legislators requesting financial support for early child care programs and families. So right now we have the Child Care Assistance Program through the state of Illinois. We need families to ask for them to raise those levels. You have to be making, and I can't recall offhand the numbers, but it is close to nothing, the poverty line. And we know what that is. And to live in a community like Evanston, that is nothing. And to take into account if you have to pay rent, your food, medical needs that you might have, because it doesn't. It's just based on your family income and your family size. So we need more financial.
I'm going to give Betty, thank you so much, because we're almost out of time. I want to give Mark 30 seconds to try to answer that, maybe 45.
Cam,
questions.
Cam, this is Mr. Chairman. We can extend it 15 more minutes if you guys have more to cover.
Oh, okay? Mr. Man, you are amazing. You are amazing. Okay, then let me go ahead and let Betty finish. We're going to write to our legislators, and then I'll give Marika.
As a follow-up, to what Trina was also saying, on the Reba Early Learning Center YouTube page, there is also a trauma-informed care presentation that we shared with our staff and our families. It's a training to kind of help you think about what is needed for yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else around you. So how to relieve some stress and anxiety, how to talk to your children, and what's needed for that. So please check that out.
All right, thank you, Betty. Yeah, we have all have PTSD. This is trauma. This has been a trauma. This pandemic is something. Glenn, do you want to pose your question to Marcar as well?
Yeah, I would. You know, in light of everything that I just said within Cradle to Careers, we can see that what Betty is saying, and now we have to challenge Cradle to Careers and other groups to show transparent and effective work on a different scale of getting information to the legislators and keeping parents and the people that we say that we commit to informed. I understand that the city and a lot of organizations, they just don't have that reach because so many systems have failed. And they failed because we're in this position that we're in now. I think that what we need to do, and I'd like to see as a group, and I like to see what you would say is, how are we going to show a grassroots approach, a hands-on, to really show that we are supplementing the need. A lot of times it's not a letter or forming a committee. What resources are we going to make available, and how are we going to put hands on this part of the community that is so greatly underserved? You don't need a survey to show what the problem is. It's looking us in the face every single day. And right now it's time for us to put up or shut up, like they say on the streets. And now we have a real advantage now using the show as a catalyst to get to families, but we have to step up our game. And what is your plan to do that? So everybody here can know that we're more than just committed, because now we're on a global scale, and what we say and what we do, we have to stand behind it.
Yeah. So first I'm going to say, I do not have all the answers. I don't think any individual, has all the answers. But as Kim was saying, we are in the midst of this collective trauma. I think we don't acknowledge it enough that we are still in the middle of all of it. We don't know what the long-term effects, are going to be. At the same time, it's a real opportunity to start things from the beginning. One of the things that's really been happening is the pandemic has brought to the surface all the inequities that we already knew were there, all the cracks that we absolutely have known have existed, and every single line, you listen, whether it's childcare, whether it's employment, whether it's housing, it is mostly Black and brown families, and honestly, to a significant degree, women, that are really suffering, from all of this. And this is coming to the surface. So part of what I really want to do is think through with all of you and the rest of the community, how can we respond? What does that look like? So it's interesting, Glenn, you're asking me the question and you're saying you don't want it to be top down. And so my response is, yeah, you're absolutely right. It can't be top down. So I'm not coming into Evanston thinking I have all the answers. I am coming into Evanston saying, I am here with my experience, I am here with my passion, and I am here to learn and grow with all of you. What can we do? You know about the community far more than I do. You know about the existing systems and how it's affecting, the Black and brown communities. So what I am looking forward to is partnering together. And I'm not saying that I don't have my own ideas or my own history, but I don't think that needs to be, I think that needs to support what happens from the grassroots. So if someone says, hey, I think we need to do it this way, then it's an opportunity for me to say, well, I've been in that situation, and how about if we tweak it in this certain way? But it's definitely going to be not Marikar's ideas. It's going to be, let's look at what's happening, let's look at where the cracks are, and how can we, as a group of advocates, as a community, as all of Cradle to Career, figure out what to do differently and how to really break down some of these old structures that have been inequitable for a really long time. So I hope that's helpful. It may not have been what you were looking for, but really sincerely, I believe this is something I want us to co-create together.
Well, the cracks are already exposed. Yes. The problem already exists, and we're living it. Yep. It wasn't, I'm trying to say that what is your ideas, so to speak, how you change, but as an agency, okay, how do we effectively do something different than what was done before and take next steps, okay, into engaging with the community that other agencies and civic leaders have failed to do. This is the aspect that I'm looking for, because now we're not just talking about adults, we're talking about our children.
Yes.
Okay, and if you take away a child's history, you take away their identity. And we have to restore who our children are and get them on some path to normalcy, even though it's going to be changed.
I agree with you, Glenn. I agree with you. One way to do that, I think, is we have to be at the conversation when we're talking about systems in our community, locally, statewide, and federal. So meeting with legislators, Representative Robin Gable and Jennifer John Gershowitz have been at the table with us, Jan Schakowsky, in support of early childhood education. But sometimes, and often, they don't know what is needed or where it is because they're not experiencing it on a daily level. So sharing personal stories, phone calls, letters, emails, however you can get your voice heard, that's what we need to do, is be there and keep on them so that they know what's happening from our eyes, our voice, on a daily basis.
And I think specifically, I want to say something, Kim. So Kim had this really huge, amazing idea around youth and supporting their anti-racism initiatives. So Cradle to Career is actually working with Dr. Logan to figure out what is it that we can do to help build what the youth are already doing around anti-racism and Black Lives Matter. And we are actually wanting to use their expertise and mainly serve as adults to kind of lend our social capital, but really help them lead this work. And that's one way that we're thinking about, like, how can we do things differently than what has happened in the past?
So we got a lot of work to do. Bottom line, we all have a lot of work to do. Thank you for Rebecca. Rebecca put the Evanston Care Network in the comments, which is a huge resource, everything from mental health to medical issues. So if you need a resource to e-learning, to school, they can connect you. This network was built for that. Evanston Care Network, I believe .com or .org. I did not look down, but it is in the comments. What a show, guys. What a show. We know that this new world is going to be not like before. We have an opportunity to make it better. You know, different doesn't mean bad. And I was trying to come up with the title, as I do every week, and I thought Back to the Future. As soon as I sent it out, I said, dang, it should have been different world. But it's going to be a different world. But we're going to be okay. We're going to support each other. We're going to uplift each other. And we're going to continue to be here to connect you to what's happening. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Be safe. Remember, we love Evanston. And have a great, great Saturday. We'll be here next week and every Saturday at 10 o'clock for our community coffee. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm a working mom of 2 girls. I'm married and I live here in Evansville. I decided to become a member of Advocates for Action because I found that it was a really innovative way to get involved in the community. Basically recognizing that as a citizen, you don't necessarily have to have a title or a leadership position to empower yourself and be an active voice and make change.
My name is Glenn Mackey. I'm happily married. I'm the father of a daughter. The Advocates for Action, I think, basically to make it really simple, they're a group of concerned residents, citizens of Evanston that have got together, organized ourselves, educated ourselves, and started a process of continuous learning and understanding and incorporating different ideas into our environment so we can start liberating people and educating people.
The approach that I wanted to have as it pertains to the model of training for Advocates for Action, we call it the 4D. It is determine, develop, deploy, and deepen.
So the training with Pastor Dillard, for me, I will say, was very interesting. I absolutely loved it. I look forward to my Saturdays, and I will go away, reevaluating some things.
What makes Advocate for Action different than any other group is that we have over 40 organizations that we partner with, more resources.
The issues that I'm excited to see the Advocates for Action help the city with is frankly, issues that we're struggling with right now, and I think hearing the voices from a lot of people around this community will make sure that some of the social service programs and the really important youth programs that we have in the community are protected.
My vision is for this group to become a cohort.
My hope for the future of Advocates for Action is more members of our community will find their voice.
I'm an advocate.
I'm an advocate.
I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate.
I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate.
Listening to Evanston Cradle to Career Advocates for Action on Radio La Difference. Please tune in next Saturday for another show.